It's not that I don't like the way she sounds, it's just that the very sound of her voice enrages me. What's up, people? Welcome back to another episode of Stars and Garters. I'm Kitty Pryde, and yes, we do have a Marvel Monday this week, and hopefully in more subsequent weeks, because Marvel Mondays are getting a little harder to think of ideas for, mostly because most of the movie related stuff has already kind of been said, and then most of the comic related stuff is pretty niche. So it's like a broad array of topics, but when I think of stuff that you guys actually want to hear about, that narrows it down significantly. But I do have an idea, kind of a series, I guess, of episodes that I'm going to be doing for Marvel Monday. So I made my top 10. I made my top 10 list of my favorite Marvel characters, but I did it in 2 episodes because I did the top 5 with my dad because he doesn't do top 10s, and then I did the rest of them on a different episode, which you should both go watch. You should watch both of them. But I thought that since these are my favorite characters, I should do more episodes about them. And I thought, since comics are so niche most of the time and way more expansive and a lot to talk about, I thought, what if I just give the non-comics history and my favorite adaptations of my favorite characters in different media forms than the comics. So, basically, I'll be looking, when I do these, I'll be going from 5 to 1. I'll just do the top 5. But going from 5 to 1, looking at movies, TV, and video games primarily. And I'll be looking at mainly ones that feature them more prominently, especially in the video game section, because there are a lot of video games, a lot of Marvel video games, and that have just a ton of Marvel characters, but aren't really a story or anything. So it's hard to really talk about what I thought because it's just they were a character. So, and then I'll mention appearances in TV and movies if they were just there for a second, but I'm not gonna have a lot to say about that, obviously. But if you will recall, if you did watch that top 5 episode, which again you definitely should, my number 5, my 5th favorite Marvel character of all time is Kitty Pryde. Now, I talked about why she's my favorite on that episode, so again, you really should go watch that. My dad didn't agree with me very much on this one, which was kind of weird because he introduced me to her and let me read the series that got me into her. So I don't know, whatever. But let's look at how she has been adapted into different media forms. Now for Kitty, this is probably going to be one of the shorter types of these episodes because even though she's a prominent character in Marvel Comics, to those of you or most of you who are not that into the comics and stuff, she hasn't been made as important outside of the comics in many things, but she has been featured, and so there is still something to talk about. She's still definitely popped up in a few places. So we will go ahead and start out with movies, as that will probably be the longest of the list, I guess, and the easiest to really talk about. So obviously, she was featured in the Fox X-Men series, X-Men movie series. She wasn't featured very prominently at first. She had a very tiny cameo in the first one. Weirdly, she appeared as a teenager, I think, and she kind of just was there in one scene and then walked through a wall in the second scene, and that was it for her. And then in the sequel X2, she appears as a kid, weirdly, So apparently, the first movie just didn't count. We'll just say that was some other walking through walls student. And she appeared as a kid, and she was most prominently featured in the scene where William Stryker attacks, the academy and everything. Is that what they call it? The school, whatever. Uh, and she just kind of shows off her powers and stuff. She uses them in the big fight and phases through stuff. Obviously, she's like a child, and she's not that much of an important character, just like here's a mutant who exists and can do mutant things. But she was there, which was interesting, and we don't get to see much of her as a kid actually in the comics. I mean, it's mostly as a teenager, but this was like a child. So that was interesting in comparison. And then in X-Men: The Last Stand, she starts actually getting a role. So she starts being played by Ellen Page, and she kind of graduates to actual member of the X-Men. So in The Last Stand, it's when everybody's kind of dealing with Jean Grey's death and whatnot, and they've moved around and things are happening, and I think it was something about the Phoenix. It's been a while since I watched that one, but what I know about Kitty is mainly it focused on like she started getting a thing with Iceman because him and Rogue were going through a whole thing, and she was having her can't touch people angst. So Kitty kind of swooped in and uh, kind of replaced her a little bit. But she did get a lot of action in the last fight because she got a whole scene where she takes on Juggernaut by herself, which she gets to really show off her powers and gets a much bigger role than she's had previously. And she is, I mean, not the one, but she's probably the main one who helps in saving this Cure kid who like blocks out mutant powers that they're trying to get to for the whole movie. So that was the biggest role that she had had since then. And then she gets to play a super important role in X-Men Days of Future Past because that whole movie centers around the X-Men having to go into the past to change the future, hence the name. And Kitty is the one who can send their minds, basically, their consciousness into their past bodies to help all of the, change the past, basically. So, even though the movie is still mostly about the X-Men who actually go into the past, she does make the whole past thing possible. So that was probably her most important role. Doesn't get as much action necessarily, and this power is apparently it evolved. Her mutant power evolved, like because that is a thing that mutant powers do. Like Beast wasn't always blue and furry. If you didn't know, he just used to have really big hands and feet. But his mutant gene evolved, and he got blue and furry. So apparently that was an evolution of her phasing power. Now she can like phase people's consciousness, which was interesting and not something I had seen in the comics. But it is an important role, so that was the most time probably that she got in the movies. But other than the Fox X-Men series, as far as movies go, that's basically it for Kitty. She has not been featured, like not really even appeared in any other movies. She definitely hasn't been in the MCU, and we want that for sure. But she this is mostly it for her and the movies. So my thoughts on this, it's kind of hard to pick a favorite movie iteration of her because there's only really one. So as I've said before on Judah's podcast, actually, Truvia Radio, it was like the contrasting the X-Men in the movies and in the comics. And the X-Men Fox movies don't, they feel not X-Men-y enough. I think they're okay movies on their own, but they don't have the same vibe as like X-Men comic, which is like a really great vibe and really awesome. So it's unfortunate. And there's just weird changes that are made. And like it's like if I didn't know if it was supposed to be based on what it's based on, then I probably would be totally fine with it. But I know the comics, and it's just so different, and it doesn't feel very X-Men y, but they're okay movies in their own right. So with Kitty, honestly, just happy that she got a prominent-ish role in a movie. I mean, good for her. Again, she just hasn't been featured in that much stuff outside of the comics, so I was very happy with this. I've liked her for a long time, and this is kind of, I don't know if I saw these movies before I got into the comics, but I don't know. This really helped me. The movies I saw, um, still like when I was pretty young, and they kind of helped me get into her character a little bit more. I can't remember if it was before or after the comics, but either way, it further helped to solidify that I thought she was a really cool character. It helped me get more into her and learn more about her. So that is nice. But looking like now, like knowing more about her character and reading more of the comics and just knowing more in general, they did fine by her character. I mean, they got her powers. Powers looked great. She used them pretty well in the scenes where she was there, and they did pretty good with that. It's just they kind of I feel like this happened with more than one person, but they kind of like angsted up her personality. She's way more like sarcastic, I guess, like and tough talking kind of. She's just a little bit more aggressive in a way and just yeah, like angsted up, you know? It's like it kind of feels like her character in the comics, but it's like plus angst. And like trust me, the X-Men don't actually need you to give them more angst. They got plenty just by existing. So, um, you know, it felt weird. It just felt odd. And, you know, in the comics, she's definitely like very strong willed and she takes charge very well, but she's not so like aggressive and like snarky and angsty about it. So I like it's mixed feelings because the first time I saw it, it very much again just helped me to get into the character and kind of was part of introducing me to her, and I thought she was cool. But now that I read the comics, I think she's cool in a different way, and I like the way she is in the comics better. So I just I don't. It's hard to say whether I like this version or not because of the mixed feelings, but like it's okay. Like I'm definitely not gonna say I hate it and they ruined her or anything. So it's okay. It doesn't upset me, but it isn't the same kind of oh wow she's so cool because I know she's even cooler in the comics. Uh, but so yeah, it's okay. All right. So that is all for Kitty in the movies. Now we will look at TV shows. Um, this one, this, she is, it's kind of the same with the movies actually. It's more, she gets some appearances, and then in more recent years, she has had like an actual prominent role, but still not as prominent as the rest of the X-Men, just because she's not one of the famous ones. So she made two small appearances in two episodes in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, mostly because Iceman was a main character in that series, but she kind of was there and existed in two episodes. So that's fun. She was also in that Superhero Squad show, if you know. I think I watched that show a little bit, but she was in there because literally everyone was, so of course she was. X-23 is also in that show. So I think they just kind of yeeted all the characters in there. Like, also, what even was that show for the people who watched? Like, what was happening? If you could explain, that would be really helpful, because I think I might have just dreamt the whole thing. But anyway, she was a way bigger character in the show Wolverine and the X-Men.
Admit it, Peter. You are being schooled by a girl.
I know very little about that series. I've just seen it, and it's about Wolverine leading the X-Men. But she did actually get a role. She does join the X-Men. She, as far as I could tell just by looking at it, it looks different, and I don't like that. It looks a little deviant from what I think when I think about her. So I'm not I wouldn't guess that it's that good, but I don't know because I haven't actually watched it. So she did not, like, surprisingly, she didn't get to be in X-Men the Animated Series. They kind of replaced her with Jubilee. Because she's kind of that same role, just like the young kid who got picked up by the X-Men, but I feel like Kitty was like more. I mean, now that I think about it, I never even thought about like putting her in that role because it's just Jubilee now. She's just there, and that feels right because X-Men the animated series was still a great show. But now that I think about it, like that, I almost feels like Kitty should have had that role. It could have been great, but that's not how it went. They went to Jubilee. So we had to settle for her main role in the series X-Men Evolution.
What? I like just fell out. You're just like some freak. I was like, having trouble with my locker.
Which is pretty just straightforward X-Men do stuff kind of series. Not particularly anything special. I did watch that one, so we'll talk about that in a second. So, my thoughts on her TV appearances. I did watch Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends as a very small child, but definitely don't remember ever meeting Kitty in that show, so that's unfortunate. I don't know if that would help me like her more, because to my knowledge, it was like she was just there and maybe appeared. So, I don't know if it would have helped me like her, but it would have been cool, to be like, hey, I remember her, but I don't. I did, however, watch quite a few episodes of X-Men Evolution, and, like, specifically Kitty's characterization were one of the biggest reasons I stopped watching the show. Like, her powers were fine, but, like, they turned her essentially into, like, a valley girl, and her voice angered me. Like, just hearing her talk. Like, she talked like a valley girl, and I was like, that is not Kitty. That's not my Kitty. Like, what? Like, I don't know where they were going with that. So, that annoyed me. Unfortunately, I don't think she's ever had a great role in a TV series. Can't pick a favorite, just do better. Maybe she should appear, definitely she should get a role in X-Men 97, now that they're on a roll with that, and that's an awesome show, so, like, let's put her in there. You already had a bunch of cameos, and I didn't even think, like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm just like, man, you should have put a cameo in her already, but they're doing a season 2, so let's give her a cameo, or better, like, let's give her an actual role, because all she has is Wolverine and the X-Men and X-Men Evolution, which just did not, I don't think, did her justice at all. Like, but anyway, so that is it for her TV appearances. Now moving on to video game appearances. So, unfortunately with this one, Kitty's never really had any important, like, story important roles in any video games. Just as I said, it was like Marvel video games. All of the characters are here. She is a character and does stuff, but never like a video game where she is like an important character. That we could really say anything about how they adapted her, so you can't really say much for video games at all. Kitty just doesn't basically have a role there. So, overall favorites of all of the things. What is my favorite adaptation? of Kitty from the comics. So, first of all, I just wish she was in more. She's a really great character, and she should just be in more stuff because she's cool. But ultimately, my favorite is none of them because none of them come close to what I love about her in the comics. Because she's like this genius, no nonsense, like very big sister type role uh, in the comics. And that is what I like about her. And they just don't do those parts in anything. They just like changed up her character and never for me really adapted what I loved about her as a character. So I can't have a favorite because I don't feel like they completely, any of these just like really did her justice as I like her for. So unfortunately, I don't have a favorite, and I think they need to do better. I think she should be in the MCU. I think that she should be in X Men '97. Um, so let's get on that, people. Like let's do Kitty stuff. She's do Kitty stuff. Kitty Pryde. Like just put her in there. She's really cool. She has some great storyline. She phased a bullet through the earth. She's really cool. So do it. Do it, please. Please. Please do it for me. Alright, so that is it for the non comics history of Kitty Pryde as far as I know my knowledge extends to. So most of the episodes in the series are probably going to be a lot longer. The next one is Deadpool. So I know he's had more stuff happen in other things. So uh, it'll probably be a lot. Well, I don't know if it's a lot longer, but it'll be longer for sure. But I hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit about my favorite Marvel characters. I enjoy talking about them. And I hope that you guys like this idea for a series because I'm gonna do it either way. Thank you guys again for watching, and make sure to comment and subscribe and follow and share and like and tell people to do all of those things as well. I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.